Hi, this is Karen. I'm with inspiredbygram.com. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making a sunflower card, and I used watercolor paper and gold embossing powder to create the sunflowers here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We also have a lot of die cutting and just a little bit of stamping here. I threw in the glittered enamel gold dots, and inside is just a simple stamping with a leaf. All right, so let's get started. We're going to talk about first my Hostess Code for June until June 30th, 2020. Using this code in a $40 order or more at my website here, you can receive the butterfly gems for free from me, and I send these out in the month of July. Once June or it finishes up, we'll be sending those out. All right, so the dies that we're going to be using today are found on page 175, and they are right here at the very top here. We're using sunflowers, and this is the Celebrate Sunflowers bundle. So you can purchase this bundle and save 10%, or if you join Stampin' Up! By June 30th, this could be one of the bundles you receive for free. And that promotion is called Pick a Free Bundle Starter Kit Promotion. So you can find all that information at my website. All right, so the stamp set we're using is Celebrate Sunflowers. I chose to use the small sunflower here, Thanks a Bunch, and this little leaf here. But this really stamps amazing, and I'll show you my template here. So I did create a template with all the die cuts and the stamped images. I stamped these in Old Olive ink on Very Vanilla, and I chose Very Vanilla because I think the sunflower comes out a little bit nicer on a more softer vintagey paper than a bright white. So these are all various die cuts that come in the bundle. These sentiments here fit really nicely on the stitched rectangle dies. So as you can see, I did stamp all the sentiments that come in the Celebrate Sunflowers stamp set and just die cut them out with the stitch rectangles. The other dies we're going to be using come from Stitch So Sweetly, and I used the rectangle that's the second largest. Also, I used painted labels, and I used this one right here and die cut it in soft suede. And finally, the stitched rectangle for the sentiment is this one. I'm not sure what size it is, but use whatever one works for you. All right, so the designer series paper I used comes from Artistry Blooms. It's a 12 by 12 paper pack, and it comes in so many different coordinating colors here that you can use. Now, Old Olive is not on this chart, but I think it works really nice with the card design. So the first thing we need to do is we need to work with some watercolor paper, and this is just a scrap. It's 2 1/4 inches wide by, I don't know, maybe 6. You're gonna want some, I guess some used paper towel there. So on watercolor paper, there's a smooth side and there is a rough side, and I found that working on the smooth side turns out better. The ink colors I chose are Old Olive, and we'll make sure you'll see I've got palettes there. Mary Merlot, Cajun Craze, and this is the old stamp pad, but it still works. And also Crushed Curry. So Old Olive, Mary Merlot, Cajun Craze, and Crushed Curry. And I gotta get some more ink on that because I like to use quite a bit of the yellow. All right, so now we're gonna be die cutting 3. We need to make 3 of these images. So I do not have the new aqua painters yet, but I'm going to be ordering those soon. All right, so what I wanna do first is create the center of the, let me show you, center of this daisy. So I'm gonna just, there's no prettiness about my watercoloring. This is how I created it, so I kind of just went with it. So I need to do 3 of these. So basically I'm just gonna create kind of like 3 circles Okay, and then just make sure my brush is somewhat clean. Now I'm going to bring in the crushed curry, and I'm just gonna swoop it like this, just like this, and then what's happening is that Mary Merlot is actually going into the crushed curry. Again, we're creating 3 different flowers, and they're all gonna come out differently. Okay, so now that's pretty good. Now what I want to do is I want to bring in, let's go with the old olive. Now I need 3 locations for the leaves. So on the stamp here, you'll see there's 2 leaves right there. So I'm just going to, I'll put it down in a later spot. And just down here. Okay. And you could swish it over like that if you really wanted to, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Cajun Craze to give it some orange. Okay, this is more, the Mary Merlot is actually turned into some orange. And I'm just going to go swoop it like this. Again, there's no rhyme or reason. And it's basically browning out. But once it dries, it'll look pretty good. So I'm just gonna kind of create like this. I'm gonna probably throw in some more of that crushed curry to give some more yellow. All right, so now it's really humid here today, so when I'm filming on June 22nd. So I'm going to let this dry off camera. Because I've already, actually no, I want to show you the heat embossing on how that all works. So let me just clean out my brush. I won't do the die cutting on camera, okay? That'll be for another day. So this is really wet and you can't really stamp on it right now. It has to dry. So what I do is I take my heat tool and I'll use my take your pick tool to hold it. And while this is drying, you guys can go get a beverage or whatever, or fast forward on the film. So I'm just using my Stampin' Up! Heat tool, and I'm holding it with the take your pick tool so it doesn't fly all around. It's kind of like a blow dryer, but it's not. So I'm just running my heat tool back and forth, and you can see the colors are starting to get a little bit lighter, and this one over here on the right side is actually turning brown. So now I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to dry it from the back side as well. You just want to make sure that your watercolor paper is completely dry before you stamp on it again. And you notice it does curl up, so when it starts curling up, just heat it from the back side and it'll flatten out for you. Alright, so I'm just turn that off for a second. I just want to make sure that it is dry. It's really hot. Very hot. Okay, so that's pretty good. Alright, so now this is where my leaves are going to get stamped. And that's my primary concern about when I stamp. I don't want to have the leaves stamped on this side. So I've got the little sunflower here. It's really, really cute. I know Stampin' Up! Does not sell the embossing buddy anymore, but I choose to use it. So I'm just rubbing this on. It's a sack of, like, I think cornstarch. So what that does is just removes any kind of static or fingerprints on it. So now I got my Versamark ink, and this is a watermark stamp pad. And when I add Versamark to my stamp, I always do the ink pad to the red rubber here. And you can't see the ink, but it is shiny, and I know there's some ink on there. So now I'm going to stamp right here, making certain that the leaves are in the old olive area. And I'm going to hold this down about 10 seconds because it's going to take a little bit for that Versamark ink to seep into the watercolor paper. Okay, so I know that's there. You can't see it, but trust me, it's there. So I'm just going to simply ink this up again. And I'm going to stamp down and hold it for about 10 seconds. Again, I aimed the leaves on the bottom part of that paper. Okay, and then one final inking. And again, I'm just going to stamp it right down and hold it for about 10 seconds and we'll be good to go. All right, so while that's just sitting here right now, what I need to do is close up all those ink pads because we're going to be working with gold embossing powder, and I do not want the powder to get caught into the inks. That would destroy your ink pad. So I'm just going to simply close those up real quick. I've got a combination of the old and the new stamp pads here. All right, so in my Versamark ink, I want to get covered up too. Okay, so now I've got my gold embossing powder in this little container, which I purchased at Dollar Tree. I don't know if they still sell them anymore, but they were 3 for $1. I mark them with my label maker, so that's gold. I've got a little spoon in here that stays in here all the time. And I got this little gel, silica gel, that just keeps the humidity and moisture out of your powder. So right now I'm just adding it on here, and you can see this one's pretty good, and we're just going to move over to the center one. And then I'm going to just turn this around and add some more here. And it's okay if there's like powder that got, see there's some right over here. That's okay because we're going to die cut this out. All right, so I'm just going to set this down, close this up. Make sure you always close up your embossing powder before you turn your heat gun on. All right, so now we're going to heat set this. Again, it's going to be loud and it'll take about a minute to do this, but if you want to watch the magic, just I'll try to hold this as close as I can to the camera. Here we go. So this is one of the first techniques I ever learned as a card maker. Very, very first. And that was like 6 or 7 years ago. I went to a party, not a party, it was just a get-together, crafting get-together, and I worked with a swallowtail butterfly, and that's a huge stamp. And that was my very first experience, and it really sold me on paper crafting. That stamp set is now retired, but I just remember every single time I do emboss, it reminds me of that event. Okay, so every single time you actually watercolor, you're going to get images that look different because it all depends on the amount of ink that you're using and of course the amount of water that you're adding to the ink. All right, so I know those are all heat set, and I just make sure it is completely done, which it is. So now what I would want to do is I want to make the definition on the leaves stand out a little bit more. So I'm just going to bring in that old olive again. And then I'm just going to use my aqua painter, and I'm just going to make sure that it's not too dark, and just add some green over the orange that's there. Just so that you'll see them a little bit better. And hopefully you can see this on camera. Now the ink is not going to set on the gold embossed like veins of the leaves, but it will go into the paper. I'm not adding any water to it. I'm just picking up what's in the palette and adding it to that area. Okay, so now we can't really use this yet because this is still wet. So what I would do is I would take your paper towel, and I'm going to clean my brush. Make sure you always clean the ink out of your brush tip so it doesn't contaminate your next card. So I would just dab this, just so you can see a little bit of the old olive ink that's coming up, and then just rub this so it gets the ink off of the embossed area here, so there's no residue of ink. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to die cut these out. So I want to show you that I've already die cut it so I don't have to bring in the big shot here. So in my little Wish It, Dream It, Do It box, I have all the bits and pieces that's going to make this card here. So these are the ones I made before. Very similar. Did add more green to the leaf areas. You can tell on that one for sure. And see how they just, they're so they're just so different and they're very unique. Okay. We also need a bunch of these. Actually, not a bunch. We only need 3. But these are the die cuts that I'm going to use, and let me just show you here. I like to use the doubles, so they comes double or it comes single, just like this. So I want 1 color of each. So I've got gold, old olive, and crushed curry, and that's good. These I will use to make more of these cards. Okay. So let me just put those all away, and we're going to assemble the card. Okay, so all the pieces here. This is the rectangle, stitched rectangle that's going to be used for the sentiment. Here's a embellishment here in our stitched scalloped foam, and then this is the Artistry blooms paper. And it's 2-sided, but I chose this one because it's got some of the colors of the sunflower. Very Vanilla 4 by 5 1/4 panel for the inside of your card. I've got a Very Vanilla envelope. Everything's going to coordinate. And I've got Old Olive, and this is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and it's scored at 4 1/4. And I'm just going to use my bone folder here just to burnish it, and it gives it a nice crease here. And your card will lay flatter for you. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add the designer series paper. This is 2 by 5 1/2, and you just need to decide which side you want as the top and the bottom. I like to go dark to light, so that's what I'm going to choose. I'm actually also going to be showing you the Stampin' Seal and the Stampin' Seal Plus. Both I used on these cards. Now, this took me a little bit to get used to because it doesn't make any noise. Okay, so listen. All you can hear are my fans. I have got some box fans going in my room because it's super hot in my craft room. But you don't hear that, okay? I'm gonna, and the snail always had that noise. So I really, really like the Stampin' Seal. And it's stickier than your regular snail. So I'm just going to add this on about a 1/2 inch inside the Old Olive score line. And it's flush top and bottom. Alright, so then the next thing we're going to do, let me just bring this in front of you here. We're going to add one of the focal points here, the swirly thing. And I'm just going to turn this over, and I'm going to use that Stampin' Seal once again. Of course, you can't hear it. It's not really making any noise. Just going to add this to the top right corner. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build the sunflower on top of the stitch rectangle. So you just got to decide which one do you want on the top and which one do you want on the bottom. I guess it doesn't really matter unless you have one that's die cut that's not die cut very well. You can see where this one is die cut just a little bit too much. So maybe that one will be on the bottom. And then just decide from there what you want to do. So I said we're going to use Stampin' Seal Plus, and that's what I'm using on the watercolor paper because you need something very sticky. All right, so I'm just going to add this to the bottom, and I'm bringing it over the edge about 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Okay, so that's not going to go anywhere. That is like super strong. Okay, so now these, we're going to put one this way, and then this one is going to go this way. But these get popped up on dimensionals. So I want to add 3. 1, 2, and 3. And let me just remove the backings. Just by pressing in the middle of the dimensional, it will lift right off. And I want the leaves to go up. Okay, so now this one, we'll flip this over, and again we want 3 dimensionals, one down here, one over here, and one up there. And again, just give it a nice press with your fingernail. And now we're just going to add this down here. I use 3 odd numbers because it's more pleasing to the eye. Now we're going to add this to our card front. So let's bring our card front in one more time. We're going to use 5 dimensionals. You'll be using a lot of dimensionals in this card, but I like that it gives depth, just adding the height. And I added one in the middle there just so it doesn't buckle on us. All right, so those are all removed. I'm going to add this in. And I'm going to add it about 1/4 of an inch inside from the score line. Oops, I got a dimensional backing on my thumb. Okay. All right, give it a nice press. Now we're going to add the foliage. And how I did this, I built it first. So you'll need some glue dots. And I'm just going to add it. You got to be really careful because it's this die is it's very thin. It's like 1/8 of an inch. And if you need to use take your pick tool just to have it release better. Again, it's so hot in my room, so that's kind of affecting, humidity is actually affecting this. The glue dot, that's like super stuck. All right, so now I'm going to add this one on top of the crushed curry. Now I'm going to then add the gold one to the front, just because I want the gold to be more prominent on the card so it matches the embossed sunflowers. Just add that there. So now we're going to sneak these. So I should have used my silicone mat. Okay, so now we're going to sneak these down in here. Okay, hopefully we can do that and there's no dimensionals. If there is, I'll have to pop that up. But to secure it, I used the Tombow glue, and I'm just going to add a little bit here. You don't need too much, it's just a little bit. And now I'm going to try to sneak this down in. If I have to, I'm just going to lift this up a little bit. And before I sneak it all down, make sure it looks good. Okay, now I'm going to press that back down. So that will dry, and if it's like bothering you, just use a block to hold it in place. And while that's drying, we're going to stamp again on that stitch rectangle. And I've got Mary Merlot, and I've got Thanks a Bunch. And we'll try to get this on straight. All right, that looks pretty good. We're done with this. And now we need to, that should be dry, it is. We need to add this to the card front. So to do this, you're going to add your Stampin' Seal Plus behind the THAN area. Okay, and now we're going to add some dimensionals. More dimensionals. Okay, so you're going to add 1 to the middle, and then you're going to do 2 on this side because you need to stack it up because you've got 2 dimensionals to get to raise it up to be balanced. So you've got one under this one and you got one under the sunflower there. So I removed the backing on that one, and I'm just going to match this one up and stack it. So now there's 2, and you can see that, I think, on camera. Remove that backing, bring the card back in, and then just decide where you want to put it. So I like to have some old olive showing, and don't forget this is gonna hit that old olive, and just press it down. My hands are really sticky, so be careful there. Okay, now we're going to just add these gold glittered enamel dots, and they come in 3 different sizes, and they're super smooth and round, so you should have no problem with postage. And I add a large one, a medium one, and a really, really tiny one up here. So then on the back of the card, I'm going to add my stamped image of my, let me just show you, I think I did it on this one. Yep, I stamped the leaf and my information on my cards. So I'm just going to use the first generation ink here of Old Olive, just a subtle amount. I'm going to take my personalized stamp, which I had made for me. I ordered it through ribberstamps.com. They're not sponsoring this video, but I get that question a lot. Where did I purchase it? So that's where I purchased it from. And I'm adding the Stampin' Up! Copyright logo because I do sell my cards. So this is all set. We also need to stamp the Old Olive leaf onto the Very Vanilla inside panel. And also we want to make sure we have a coordinating Very Vanilla envelope. I'm just going to throw down a leaf there. One is fine. And again, I'm going to take my Stampin' Seal. No noise, right? And then I'm just going to add this with a 1/4 of an inch border on all 4 sides, and just give it some love there so it stays down for you. And there's our card. All right, so here's our envelope. Here's our card we made. Different designer series pattern than this one, but they both really work nicely together. So you can tell that I actually, did I use, I don't have to go back and look. Did I use Mary Merlot? I don't remember. I think I did actually. Yes, I did when I stamped down. So I didn't mean to do that, but it actually looks really nice. And if you want to see what Old Olive looks like, I've got one here that I've already stamped. So this one would look really nice too. All right, so you can choose what color of ink to use for your sentiment. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And you can order all these supplies at inspiredbygram.com, and make sure if your order is $40 to $149.99 that you use the Hostess code, because I want to send those butterfly gems to you. Okay, very important. I know some customers do not use the Hostess code, so make sure you do so you can get these as well. So all right, for all your inspiration, you can find me at inspiredbygram.com. Thanks for watching.